Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the busy corridors of Kepler Station. His work shift had been long and tiring. For the past 3 days, he had been fixing broken air filters and water systems. It was not exciting work, but someone had to do it. Without engineers like Marcus, thousands of people living on space stations would die. The transport bay was crowded when Marcus arrived. People from many different worlds waited to board the inter-system ship. He saw tall Zephyrians with their crystal-like skin that sparkled under the bright lights. Their bodies looked like they were made of living glass. Near them stood huge Garathi traders. These bear-like aliens were twice as tall as humans and covered in thick fur. They carried large bags filled with goods to sell on other planets. Marcus also noticed several Valian diplomats. These aliens looked almost like humans but had pale blue skin and large black eyes. They moved with grace and seemed to think they were better than everyone else. Most aliens thought humans were primitive and stupid. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. To aliens who lived for hundreds of years, humans were like children. The transport ship was old but clean. Marcus found his ticket and looked for his seat. The ship would take him to Centauri Prime, where he lived in a small apartment. He was looking forward to sleeping in his own bed after 3 days of working in cramped engine rooms. As Marcus walked down the narrow aisle between seats, he noticed an elderly Zephyrian having trouble. The alien was very old. Marcus could tell because the crystal parts of their body had small cracks in them. These cracks meant the Zephyrian was in pain. The old alien was trying to stand while holding onto seatbacks for support. Their legs were shaking. Most of the other passengers ignored the struggling elder. A few aliens looked annoyed as if the old Zephyrian was in their way. Marcus felt bad for the elder. He remembered his own grandfather, who had back problems when Marcus was young. His grandfather always tried to hide his pain, but Marcus could see it in his eyes. Marcus walked up to the elderly Zephyrian. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Would you like to sit in my seat?" "I can stand for the trip." The old alien looked surprised. Their large, multifaceted eyes studied Marcus carefully. "You would give up your seat for me?" the elder asked. Their voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Of course," Marcus replied. "You look like you need it more than I do." Other passengers turned to watch this unusual scene. A human offering help to an alien was not something they saw every day. Most humans tried to stay quiet and not draw attention to themselves when traveling with other species. The elderly Zephyrian moved slowly to Marcus's seat. "Thank you, young human. I am Elder Kythera. May I ask your name?" "Marcus Chen," he replied. "I work as an engineer." Marcus found a place to stand near the back of the ship. The trip to Centauri Prime would take 4 hours. His feet would be sore by the end, but he felt good about helping the elder. As the ship left Kepler Station, Elder Kythera called Marcus over. "Please sit on the floor beside me. I would like to talk with you." Marcus sat down on the metal floor. It was not comfortable, but he did not mind. Elder Kythera began asking him questions about his work and his life. The old alien seemed very interested in human customs and beliefs. "Tell me about your job," Elder Kythera said. "What does an engineer do?" Marcus explained how he fixed the machines that kept people alive in space. He talked about air recycling systems, water purifiers, and gravity generators. Without these machines working properly, everyone on a space station would die in a few hours, Marcus said. "So I make sure they never break down." Elder Kythera listened carefully. "You save lives through your work. That is noble." "I never thought about it that way," Marcus replied. "I just fix things when they break." "But you choose to fix things that help others live," the elder pointed out. "You could work on weapons or luxury items for rich people. Instead, you maintain life support systems. This shows what kind of person you are." Marcus felt embarrassed by the praise. He was just doing his job. "Anyone would do the same thing," he said. Elder Kythera made a sound like soft crystal bells ringing. Marcus realized this was how Zephyrians laughed. "No, young Marcus. Not everyone would choose such work. And not everyone would give up their seat to a stranger." During the long trip, Marcus and Elder Kythera talked about many things. The old alien asked about human families and how humans treated their elderly. Marcus told stories about his grandparents and how his family took care of them when they got sick. "Humans live such short lives," Elder Kythera observed. "Yet you spend so much time caring for others. My people live for thousands of years, but we often become selfish as we age. We think only about ourselves." Marcus did not know what to say to that. He had never thought about how different alien cultures might be. Elder Cathera also asked about human wars and conflicts. Your species fights often, the elder said, but I have heard that humans also sacrifice themselves to save others. Is this true? Sometimes, Marcus admitted. When something bad happens, like a fire or an accident, some people risk their own lives to help strangers. Not everyone does it, but it happens. Fascinating, Elder Cathera murmured. Most species become more careful about their own safety as they evolve. Humans seem to care about others even when it puts them in danger. The conversation continued throughout the journey. Marcus learned that Elder Cathera had lived for over 3,000 years. The old alien had seen many wars and had helped write important peace treaties between different worlds. Marcus felt honored that such an important person wanted to talk with him. As they got closer to Centauri Prime, Elder Cathera became quiet and thoughtful. Finally, the elder spoke again. Marcus Chen, you have shown me something today that I had almost forgotten. You proved that kindness still exists in this galaxy. Your simple act of giving up your seat has reminded me why we must protect the good in all species. Marcus did not understand what the elder meant, but he smiled anyway. I am glad I could help. When the ship's captain announced they would arrive at Centauri Prime in 10 minutes, Marcus helped Elder Cathera stand up. The old alien moved slowly toward the exit door. Other passengers pushed past them, eager to leave the ship. Thank you again for your kindness, Elder Cathera said to Marcus. I will not forget what you did today. Marcus waved goodbye as they prepared to leave the ship. He thought this was just a nice conversation with an interesting alien. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change his life forever. He did not know that Elder Cathera was one of the most important and respected beings in the entire galaxy. Most importantly, he could not imagine that giving up his seat would soon lead to him facing an elite military squadron and changing the course of galactic history. The ship's doors opened with a loud hiss. Marcus gathered his small travel bag and prepared to walk out like he had done hundreds of times before. Centauri Prime's spaceport was always busy, but today something felt different. Instead of the usual crowd of tired travelers and cargo workers, Marcus saw something that made him stop and stare. A full military honor guard stood waiting on the landing platform. These were not ordinary soldiers. Marcus recognized the dark blue uniforms with silver markings. These were the Void Wardens, the most elite fighting force in the galaxy. Only the greatest warriors from the most advanced species could join their ranks. They were legends that Marcus had only heard about in stories. The Void Wardens stood in perfect formation. Their weapons gleamed under the spaceport's bright lights. At the front of the group was a tall Valian officer. His pale blue skin had many scars from old battles. 3 silver stars on his uniform showed he was a high-ranking commander. His large black eyes watched the ship's exit door with intense focus. Marcus felt confused and a little scared. Why were the galaxy's most elite soldiers here? Had something terrible happened? He stayed back and let other passengers leave the ship first. Maybe there was some kind of emergency he did not know about. Elder Cathera moved slowly toward the exit. The old Zephyrian's crystal body caught the light and sparkled as they walked. When Elder Cathera appeared in the doorway, something amazing happened. Every single Void Warden snapped to attention. They raised their weapons in a formal military salute reserved only for the greatest heroes. The scarred Valian commander stepped forward. He placed his right hand over his heart and bowed deeply. Elder Cathera, he said in a voice that carried respect and honor. I am Executor Thalix of the Void Wardens. It is our privilege to escort you. Marcus watched in shock as Elder Cathera walked slowly down the ship's ramp. The old alien that Marcus had simply helped with a seat was clearly someone very important. The Void Wardens formed a protective circle around Elder Cathera. Other passengers whispered to each other, trying to understand what was happening. Thank you, Executor Thalix, Elder Cathera replied, but there is no need for such ceremony. I am just an old being traveling to pay respects to fallen friends. Executor Thalix shook his head. With respect, Elder, you are never just anything. Your safety is our highest priority. The memorial service for the Battle of Void's Edge has drawn attention from across the galaxy. We must ensure nothing happens to you. More people began to gather around the landing platform. Word was spreading quickly through the spaceport that someone very important had arrived. Marcus still stood near the ship's exit, watching everything unfold. He felt like he was seeing something historic, but he did not understand what. Elder Cathera turned and looked back at the ship. The old alien's multifaceted eyes found Marcus in the crowd. "Before we leave," Elder Kithera announced loudly, "I must acknowledge someone who showed great kindness during my journey." The elder raised one crystal arm and pointed at Marcus. Every eye on the platform turned to look at him. Marcus felt his face turn red with embarrassment. He wanted to disappear. "This young human, Marcus Chen, gave up his seat so that I could rest during our trip," Elder Kithera said. "He asked for nothing in return. He simply saw that I was in pain and chose to help." Executor Thalix looked surprised. His large black eyes studied Marcus carefully. "A human showed you courtesy?" he asked, as if he could not believe it. "More than courtesy," Elder Kithera replied. "He showed compassion. In our long conversation, he demonstrated wisdom and kindness that would honor any species. He reminded me why we fight to protect peace in this galaxy." The crowd murmured with surprise. Humans were still considered a young and primitive species by most aliens. The idea that a human had impressed Elder Kithera was shocking to many of the observers. Elder Kithera continued speaking to the crowd. "This human works as an engineer. He spends his days maintaining the systems that keep thousands of beings alive on space stations. He chooses to serve others even though no one sees his work or thanks him for it. When I asked him why he made this choice, he said it was simply the right thing to do." Marcus wished he could hide. All these important aliens were staring at him. He was just a regular person who fixed machines. He did not deserve this kind of attention. Executor Thalix walked over to Marcus. The Valian commander was much taller than him and looked very intimidating. "What is your full name and occupation?" he asked in an official tone. "Marcus Chen," he replied nervously. "I work as a maintenance engineer on various space stations." "And you helped Elder Kithera without knowing who they were?" Marcus nodded. "I just saw an elderly person who needed help. It did not matter what species they were." Something changed in Executor Thalix's expression. The stern look in his eyes softened slightly. He turned back to Elder Kithera. "This is most unusual. Perhaps we should speak privately about this matter." Elder Kithera agreed. "Yes, I believe this meeting was not a coincidence. There are things we must discuss." The Void Wardens began to move toward the spaceport's exit. Elder Kithera walked with them but stopped beside Marcus first. "Please wait here for a few minutes," the elder said quietly. "I believe Executor Thalix will want to speak with you soon." Marcus did not understand what was happening, but he nodded. He watched as the most elite military unit in the galaxy escorted Elder Kithera away. The crowd of onlookers slowly dispersed, but many people kept glancing back at Marcus with curious expressions. After about 10 minutes, Executor Thalix returned alone. He walked directly to Marcus with a serious expression on his scarred face. "Marcus Chen," he said formally, "Elder Kithera has made a request that I find very interesting. They believe you possess qualities that might be valuable to the galactic community." "I do not understand," Marcus replied. "I am just an engineer." "That may be true," Executor Thalix said, "but Elder Kithera is one of the wisest beings in the galaxy. They have lived for over 3,000 years and helped create the peace treaties that keep our worlds from destroying each other. When someone like that notices a person, we pay attention." Marcus felt overwhelmed. This morning he had been a simple engineer heading home from a routine job. Now he was talking to the commander of the galaxy's most elite military force. "What kind of request did Elder Kithera make?" Marcus asked. Executor Thalix studied him for a long moment. "They suggested that you might be suitable for something that has never been attempted before. Something that could change how the galaxy views your species." The Valian commander paused as if he was deciding how much to reveal. "Tell me, Marcus Chen, have you ever considered a career in military service?" Marcus almost laughed. "Me? No, never. I am not a fighter. I just fix things." "Sometimes," Executor Thalix said slowly, "the galaxy needs people who fix things more than it needs people who break them. Elder Kithera believes you might have what we are looking for." Marcus looked around the spaceport. Everything seemed normal now, but he felt like his whole world was about to change. "What exactly are you looking for?" Executor Thalix smiled slightly. It was the first time his stern expression had softened. "We are looking for someone who can see solutions that others miss. Someone who puts the welfare of others before their own comfort. Someone who shows kindness to strangers without expecting anything in return." He paused and looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "We are looking for qualities that your species seems to possess more than others. And Elder Cathera believes you represent the best of what humans can offer. Marcus felt his heart beating faster. What are you asking me to do? I am asking you to consider something unprecedented, Executor Thalix replied. Something that no human has ever been offered before. But first, there are people you need to meet and things you need to understand about the current state of our galaxy. The Valian commander turned and began walking toward the spaceport exit. Come with me, Marcus Chen. Your life is about to become much more interesting than fixing air filters and water systems. Marcus hesitated for only a moment. Then he picked up his travel bag and followed Executor Thalix into an uncertain, but potentially amazing future. Executor Thalix led Marcus through corridors that regular travelers never saw. They passed security checkpoints where guards saluted the Valian commander and stared curiously at Marcus. After several minutes of walking, they arrived at a private meeting room deep inside the spaceport's administrative section. The room was simple but elegant. A large window showed the busy spaceport outside, where ships from dozens of worlds loaded and unloaded cargo. Elder Cathera was already waiting inside, along with 2 other Void Wardens that Marcus had not seen before. Please sit down, Marcus, Elder Cathera said gently. We have much to discuss. Marcus sat in a chair that seemed too fancy for someone like him. He felt very out of place among these important military officers and respected elders. I still do not understand why you want to talk to me, he admitted. Executor Thalix sat across from Marcus. Let me explain the situation. The galaxy is facing a new threat, one that our traditional military forces cannot handle. We have lost 3 major battles in the past 6 months. Each defeat has been worse than the last. One of the other Void Wardens, a tall alien with 4 arms and purple skin, stepped forward. I am Captain Vex of the Tecton Prime Defense Force. My people are known throughout the galaxy as Master Warriors. But even our greatest fighters have failed against these new enemies. The 3rd officer was stranger than the others. This being seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing softly in the shape of a humanoid figure. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. I am Commander Zephyr of the Stellar Consortium. My people can manipulate energy and move through space without ships. Yet we too have been defeated by these ancient machines. Marcus felt confused. Ancient machines? What kind of machines? Elder Cathera answered. We believe they are weapons left behind by a civilization that destroyed itself millions of years ago. These machines have been dormant in the empty space beyond our galaxy's edge. Something has awakened them, and now they are moving toward our worlds. The machines are unlike anything we have ever faced, Executor Thalix explained. They learn from every battle. Whatever strategy we use against them, they adapt and use it against us in the next fight. Our most advanced weapons become useless after a single encounter. Captain Vex's 4 arms gestured angrily. My people have developed new fighting techniques for thousands of years. These machines learned all of them in one battle, and used our own tactics to destroy our ships. Commander Zephyr's glow flickered with what might have been sadness. They are not just adaptive. They seem to understand military strategy better than we do. It is as if they were designed specifically to counter advanced civilizations. Marcus listened to all of this with growing worry. This sounds terrible, but I still do not understand what this has to do with me. I am not a soldier. Elder Cathera leaned forward. That is exactly why we need you. These machines defeat us because they understand how advanced military minds think. They predict our strategies because we all follow similar patterns of logic. But humans think differently. Executor Thalix added. Your species is young and has not developed the same rigid military traditions as the rest of us. More importantly, humans seem to have qualities that other species have lost over time. What kind of qualities? Marcus asked. Elder Cathera spoke softly. During our conversation on the ship, you told me about humans who sacrifice themselves to save strangers. You spoke of people who choose dangerous jobs because those jobs help others. These are not logical behaviors according to most species' understanding. Captain Vex nodded. My people stopped taking unnecessary risks millions of years ago. We learned that self-preservation is more important than heroic gestures. Most advanced species think the same way. But humans are different, Commander Zephyr said, their glow brightening. Your species regularly does things that make no logical sense but somehow lead to positive outcomes. You solve problems by ignoring conventional wisdom. Marcus shook his head. I think you are giving humans too much credit. We make mistakes all the time. Exactly, Elder Cathera exclaimed. You make mistakes, but you also make unexpected choices. These machines cannot predict illogical behavior. They expect their enemies to follow optimal strategies, but humans often choose suboptimal paths that somehow work. Executor Thalix stood up and walked to the window. We have tried everything else. Our best tacticians, our most advanced technology, our greatest warriors. Nothing works against these machines. We need a completely different approach. We need someone who thinks like a human, Captain Vex added. Marcus felt overwhelmed. You want me to fight these machines? I do not know anything about military tactics or space combat. We want you to try something that has never been attempted before, Elder Cathera said. We want you to become the first human Void Warden. The room fell silent. Marcus stared at the aliens around him, trying to process what they had just said. The Void Wardens were legendary warriors, the best fighters from the most advanced species in the galaxy. The idea of a human joining their ranks was impossible. This has to be a joke, Marcus finally said. It is not a joke, Executor Thalix replied seriously. Elder Cathera has convinced the Galactic Defense Council to approve this experiment. You would undergo the same training as any other Void Warden candidate. If you succeed, you would be granted full membership in our order. And if I fail, then we will know that this approach does not work, and we will try something else, Commander Zephyr said. But failure would not bring shame to you or your species. Simply attempting this would be an honor. Marcus thought about his quiet life as an engineer. He had a small apartment, a few friends, and steady work. It was not exciting, but it was safe and predictable. What they were asking him to do was dangerous and probably impossible. Why did you choose me specifically? He asked. There must be other humans who would be better suited for this. Elder Kithera smiled. We chose you because of what you did on the ship. You saw someone in need and helped without thinking about it. You did not consider whether I was important or whether helping me would benefit you. You simply did what you thought was right. That is the kind of instinctive decision-making we need, Executor Thalix added. Most military training teaches people to analyze situations and choose optimal responses. But against these machines, optimal responses fail. We need someone who trusts their instincts. Captain Vex stepped closer to Marcus. I have been a warrior for 300 years. I have studied every form of combat known to my people. But in our last battle against the machines, all of my training was useless. They turned my own techniques against me. Perhaps someone with no formal training would have better luck, Commander Zephyr suggested. Someone who would make choices that trained warriors would never consider. Marcus looked around the room at these legendary fighters. They were all more experienced, stronger, and smarter than him, yet they were asking for his help because they had run out of options. If I agree to this, Marcus said slowly, what would happen to my job? My life? The Galactic Defense Council would provide for all of your needs, Executor Thalix replied. Your family would be taken care of and you would receive compensation far beyond what you earn as an engineer. But more importantly, Elder Kythra added, you would have the chance to save millions of lives. If these machines continue their advance, they will eventually reach the core worlds where billions of beings live. Marcus thought about all the people he had helped keep alive through his engineering work. He had always taken pride in maintaining the systems that protected others. This was the same thing, but on a much larger scale. How long would the training take? He asked. 6 months of intensive preparation, Executor Thalix replied. It will be the most difficult thing you have ever done. Many candidates from advanced species fail to complete the program. But we believe you have something they lack, Elder Kithra said. You have the human ability to adapt and find unconventional solutions under pressure. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see ships from many different worlds. All of these civilizations depended on people like the Void Wardens to protect them from threats. If he could help even a little bit, maybe he owed it to them to try. If I do this, he said finally, I want one promise. What is that? Executor Thalix asked. If I fail or if this does not work, you will not blame all humans for my failure. My species should not be judged by what one person cannot do. Elder Cathera stood up and placed a crystal hand on Marcus's shoulder. I promise you that humans will be respected regardless of the outcome. Your willingness to attempt this has already proven what I told the council about your species. Marcus took a deep breath. Then I will do it. I will try to become a Void Warden. The room erupted in surprised murmurs from the alien officers. Even though they had made the offer, they seemed shocked that he had accepted it. "This is historic," Commander Zephyr said, glowing brighter with excitement. "The first human Void Warden." "If you survive the training," Captain Vex reminded them all. Marcus smiled nervously. "I guess we will find out soon enough." The Void Warden training facility was located on a moon orbiting the military world of Nexus Prime. Marcus had never seen anything like it. The complex stretched for kilometers across the moon's surface with training grounds that could simulate any environment in the galaxy. Underground bunkers housed the most advanced combat simulators ever built. Marcus's fellow recruits were impressive and intimidating. There was Silas, a Mindari who could read thoughts and predict enemy movements before they happened. The Mindari looked like a tall, thin human with pale white skin and large silver eyes that seemed to see everything. Silas rarely spoke aloud, preferring to communicate through telepathy with the instructors. Then there was Korath, a four-armed Tecton warrior whose species had been fighting wars for millions of years. Korath stood nearly 3 meters tall and was covered in thick armor-like skin. Each of his 4 arms could wield a different weapon simultaneously. He moved with the grace of a trained dancer despite his massive size. The third recruit was the most unusual. Lumina came from the Stellar Consortium and was made of pure energy contained in a humanoid shape. She could change her form at will and move through solid objects when necessary. In combat simulations, she could become a beam of light or a crackling bolt of electricity. Marcus felt completely outmatched from the first day of training. While his fellow recruits demonstrated incredible abilities, he struggled with even basic exercises. The physical training was brutal. Marcus had to run obstacle courses designed for beings much stronger and faster than humans. He fell behind immediately and stayed behind throughout the first month. Combat training was even worse. While Korath could fight with 4 weapons at once and Silas could predict every attack before it happened, Marcus fumbled with a single energy rifle. He missed targets that the others hit easily. During hand-to-hand combat practice, any one of his fellow recruits could defeat him in seconds. The instructors seemed frustrated with Marcus's progress. Chief Instructor Valdris, a scarred veteran from a species known for their military excellence, barely hid his disappointment during the daily reviews. "Chen's physical scores are the lowest we have ever recorded," Valdris announced to the other instructors where Marcus could hear. "His weapon accuracy is poor, his tactical knowledge is limited, and his reaction times are too slow for real combat." Marcus heard these criticisms every day. Other recruits from various species came to watch the training sessions. They whispered among themselves about the human experiment and how it was clearly failing. Some laughed openly when Marcus made mistakes during exercises. "I told you this was a waste of time," one visiting officer said loudly. "Humans are too primitive for elite military service. They should stick to maintenance work." Despite the constant failure and embarrassment, Marcus refused to quit. Every night he practiced alone in the training rooms long after the others had gone to rest. He studied tactical manuals and weapon specifications until his eyes hurt. He pushed himself harder than he had ever pushed before, but he still could not match his fellow recruits' abilities. Silas, the telepathic Mindari, was the only one who showed Marcus any kindness. "Do not let their words discourage you," Silas said one evening after a particularly difficult day. "I can sense your determination. It is stronger than anything I have felt from other recruits. Determination does not matter if I cannot hit a target or complete an obstacle course," Marcus replied sadly. "Perhaps," Silas said thoughtfully, "but determination is what keeps people fighting when logic says they should surrender. That might be more valuable than perfect aim." The real test came during the 4th month of training. The recruits were given their most challenging simulation yet, a hostage rescue mission on a deteriorating space station. The scenario was based on a real situation that had happened 3 years earlier. Elite forces from multiple species had failed to save the hostages, and the station had been destroyed. The simulation placed the recruits in command of a small strike team. Their mission was to board the damaged station, locate 20 civilian hostages, and evacuate them before the station's reactor exploded. They had exactly 45 minutes to complete the mission. Marcus's team included Silas, Korath, and Lumina, plus several advanced combat robots controlled by the simulation computer. As they approached the virtual space station in their assault shuttle, the other recruits immediately began planning their attack. I will use my telepathy to locate the hostages' minds, Silas announced. Once I find them, Korath can lead a direct assault on their position, while Lumina disables the station's defensive systems. And what should Marcus do? Korath asked, clearly considering the human to be the weakest link in their team. He can stay with the shuttle and monitor communications, Lumina suggested dismissively. Marcus felt frustrated but did not argue. He knew his combat skills were inferior to theirs, but as they boarded the damaged station, his engineering background made him notice things the others missed. The station's power grid was failing in a pattern that seemed wrong. The damage was not random. It looked like someone had deliberately sabotaged specific systems. Wait, Marcus said as the team prepared to split up. Something is not right about this station. What do you mean? Silas asked, pausing to listen. Marcus pointed to a display panel showing the station's power distribution. Look at this damage pattern. The life support systems are failing, but the security systems are still at full power. If this was accidental damage, both systems would be equally affected. Korath looked impatient. So what? We need to find the hostages before the reactor explodes. But Marcus was studying the station's layout more carefully. His years of maintaining space stations had taught him how these facilities were designed. If someone sabotaged the life support but left the security systems intact, they wanted to trap people inside specific areas. You think this is a trap? Lumina asked. I think the hostages are not where we expect them to be, Marcus replied. He pulled up the station's engineering schematics on his portable display. Look at these maintenance tunnels. If I wanted to hide people on this station, I would put them in the engineering sections where the life support systems are most stable. Silas closed his silver eyes and concentrated. I am trying to sense the hostages' minds, but there is too much interference from the station's damaged systems. Marcus pointed to a section of the schematic. The interference is probably coming from the main computer core. If someone rerouted power through the core, it would create electromagnetic fields that could block telepathy. The other recruits looked skeptical, but they were running out of time. The reactor would explode in 30 minutes and they had not found any hostages yet. What do you suggest we do? Korath asked. Marcus thought quickly. His engineering knowledge was telling him something that contradicted normal military tactics. We should not go to the obvious places first. Instead, we should shut down the security systems and reroute power to the life support systems. That will extend our time and maybe clear the telepathic interference. That will take too long, Lumina protested. We should focus on the direct approach, but Silas was nodding thoughtfully. Marcus might be correct. I can sense something, but it is very faint and seems to be coming from an unexpected direction. Marcus was already moving toward a maintenance panel. Give me 5 minutes to reroute the power systems. I can improve life support throughout the station and reduce the electromagnetic interference. Korath looked frustrated, but he nodded. Fine, 5 minutes. Marcus worked quickly, using his engineering skills to bypass damaged circuits and reroute power flows. It was the kind of work he had done thousands of times in real life. Within minutes, the station's lighting improved, and the air recycling systems began working more efficiently. The interference is clearing, Silas announced. I can sense the hostages now. They are in the lower engineering section, exactly where Marcus predicted. The team rushed to the engineering levels using maintenance shafts that Marcus identified from the schematics. They found the 20 hostages trapped in a sealed compartment, guarded by automated defense systems that had been programmed to kill anyone who approached. Instead of fighting the defense systems directly, Marcus suggested a different approach. If we cut power to this entire section for just 30 seconds, the defense systems will reset to their emergency protocols. That will give us a window to reach the hostages. Cutting power will also disable life support, Korath pointed out. Only for 30 seconds, Marcus replied. The hostages can hold their breath that long, but the defense systems will need time to reboot. It was a risky plan that went against standard military doctrine, but it worked perfectly. The team rescued all 20 hostages and evacuated the station with 3 minutes to spare. The simulation ended with a perfect success rating. Chief Instructor Valdris reviewed the mission recordings with obvious surprise. This is the first time any team has achieved a perfect score on this scenario. How did you know to look in the engineering section? Marcus explained his reasoning about the sabotage pattern and power distribution. He showed how his engineering background had helped him understand the station's systems in ways that pure military training could not. Interesting, Valdris admitted grudgingly. The ancient machines arrived at Centauri Prime 3 months ahead of schedule. Marcus had barely completed his Void Warden training when the emergency alarms began screaming throughout the galaxy. The massive fleet of mechanical ships emerged from hyperspace like a dark storm, their hulls gleaming with technology that no living species understood. Marcus stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Vigilance alongside Executor Thalix and the other Void Wardens. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see the enemy fleet approaching. The machine's ships were unlike anything in the galactic archives. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, with organic curves that shifted and changed as Marcus watched. "There are over 1,000 enemy vessels," reported Captain Vex, his 4 arms working multiple control panels simultaneously. "They are maintaining perfect formation and jamming all our long-range communications." Commander Zephyr's energy form flickered with anxiety. "Their ships are adapting even as we observe them. The hull configurations are changing to optimize for combat." Elder Cathera stood at the center of the bridge, their ancient crystal body reflecting the glow of the tactical displays. "These machines have learned from every battle they have fought across the galaxy. They know how we think and how we fight." The Galactic Defense Fleet was impressive by any standard. 500 of the most advanced warships ever built floated in formation around Centauri Prime. Each ship represented the pinnacle of military technology from different species. The crews were the best warriors and strategists in the galaxy, but Marcus could see the fear in everyone's eyes. 3 previous battles had ended in devastating defeats. Entire fleets had been destroyed while barely damaging the enemy. The machines seemed to anticipate every tactic before it was implemented. "All ships, this is Executor Thalix," the Valian commander announced over the fleet communication system. "We will engage the enemy using Formation 7. All squadrons maintain defensive positions until further orders." The battle began exactly as the previous ones had. The Galactic Fleet moved into their carefully planned positions while the machines continued their steady advance. For several minutes, both sides studied each other across the emptiness of space. Then the machines attacked. Their assault was perfectly coordinated and devastatingly effective. The enemy ships moved in patterns that seemed to predict exactly where the Galactic Fleet would be. Energy weapons fired from impossible angles, striking weak points in the defender's armor with surgical precision. Within 20 minutes, the Galactic Fleet was in full retreat. Ship after ship fell to the relentless machine assault. The enemy adapted to every defensive strategy as quickly as it was implemented. "They are countering our tactics faster than we can deploy them," Captain Vex reported, his voice filled with frustration. "It is as if they know what we are going to do before we do it." Commander Zephyr's form dimmed with despair. "My energy manipulation techniques worked for exactly 47 seconds before they developed countermeasures." Marcus watched the tactical display with growing understanding. The machines were not just adapting to individual tactics, they were following a predictable pattern of military logic. They anticipated the Galactic Fleet's moves because those moves followed established strategic principles that every advanced civilization used. "Executor Thalix," Marcus said suddenly, "request permission to speak." The Valian commander looked surprised. "Now is not the time for questions, recruit." "With respect, sir, I think I understand why we keep losing." Elder Cathara turned to face Marcus. "What do you see that we do not?" Marcus pointed to the tactical display. "The machines are not just adapting to our weapons and ships. They are adapting to our way of thinking. Every strategy we use follows logical military principles designed to minimize casualties and maximize effectiveness." "Of course," Executor Thalix replied. "That is how military strategy works." "But what if we stop trying to minimize casualties?" Marcus asked. "What if we deliberately chose strategies that make no logical sense?" The bridge fell silent except for the sound of alarms and damage reports from other ships. Captain Vex stared at Marcus with disbelief. "You want us to choose bad tactics on purpose?" "I want us to choose human tactics," Marcus replied. "The machines cannot predict illogical behavior because their programming assumes all advanced species will act rationally." Commander Zephyr flickered brighter. "You want to confuse them by making irrational decisions?" Marcus shook his head. "Not irrational, human. There is a difference." He turned to the tactical display and began pointing to different ship positions. What if instead of protecting our most important vessels, we deliberately put them in danger to save our weakest ships? What if we focused all our efforts on evacuating civilian transports instead of fighting the enemy directly? Elder Cathara's crystal features showed understanding. You want to prioritize preservation of life over military victory. Exactly, Marcus said. Humans do this instinctively. We risk everything to save people, even when it makes no strategic sense. The machines cannot compute that kind of thinking. Executor Thalix looked skeptical. That strategy would result in massive military losses. The strategy we are using now is already resulting in massive military losses, Marcus pointed out. The difference is that my approach might actually save lives while confusing the enemy. Another wave of machine ships was approaching. The Galactic fleet had less than 10 minutes before the second assault began. Elder Cathara made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Executor Thalix, the Elder said formally. I invoke my authority as a founding member of the Galactic Council. Place Marcus Chen in tactical command of this fleet. The bridge erupted in shocked protests from the other officers. Giving command to a human recruit who had completed training only days earlier was unprecedented and seemingly insane. Elder Cathara, Executor Thalix said carefully, with respect, this is not the time for experiments. This entire battle is an experiment, the Elder replied firmly. Our traditional approaches have failed 3 times. If we continue using the same tactics, we will fail again. Marcus represents our only chance to try something completely different. Marcus felt terrified and honored at the same time. Elder, I have never commanded a fleet before. But you have maintained life support systems for thousands of people, Cathara replied. You know how to prioritize preservation of life over other concerns. That is what we need now. Executor Thalix reluctantly transferred tactical command to Marcus. The human engineer found himself in control of the most powerful military force ever assembled, facing an enemy that had never been defeated. All ships, Marcus announced over the fleet communication system. This is your new tactical commander. We are going to try something that will seem completely wrong by normal military standards. He began issuing orders that made no sense according to traditional strategy. Instead of forming defensive lines, Marcus ordered the most powerful warships to escort civilian evacuation vessels. He commanded attack squadrons to focus on rescuing crews from damaged ships rather than engaging the enemy. Most surprisingly, Marcus ordered the fleet to broadcast their intentions openly so the enemy could hear them. All civilian transports begin immediate evacuation procedures. Military vessels will provide maximum protection regardless of tactical disadvantage. The machine's second assault began just as Marcus's unconventional strategy was being implemented. The enemy fleet approached expecting the same logical defensive patterns they had encountered before. Instead, they found chaos that followed no recognizable military doctrine. Powerful warships ignored strategic targets to protect defenseless transport ships. Attack fighters abandoned offensive operations to rescue survivors from destroyed vessels. The entire galactic fleet seemed to prioritize saving lives over winning battles. The machine's adaptive programming began to malfunction. Their tactical computers could not process the illogical behavior they were observing. The enemy ships started making mistakes as they tried to counter strategies that violated every principle of rational warfare. It is working, Captain Vex announced with amazement. The enemy fleet is showing signs of tactical confusion. Their formation is becoming disorganized. Marcus watched the tactical display as his human approach created results that traditional military thinking could never achieve. The machines had been programmed to fight logical opponents, but humans were not always logical when other people's lives were at stake. All ships, Marcus commanded, continue evacuation operations. Do not engage the enemy directly unless absolutely necessary to protect civilian vessels. The battle continued for hours, but the tide had turned. The machines could not adapt to an enemy that ignored military logic in favor of protecting the innocent. Their programming entered cascading failures as they tried to counter tactics that made no sense from a strategic perspective. By the end of the day, the ancient machine fleet was in full retreat. For the first time since the invasion began, the Galactic Defense Forces had achieved a clear victory. Elder Cathara approached Marcus as the celebration began on the bridge. You have done something remarkable today. You have shown that humanity's greatest strength is not military power or advanced technology. What is our greatest strength? Marcus asked.